Hey everybody, welcome to I'd Rather Be Motivated, episode 27 with me, Scott Green, and as always, David Fleming. Tonight is going to be a bit of a special episode. We're here with the creators of Magnus the Brave. Say what's up, fellas. Just jump in there, say hey.
What's going on, everybody?
All right, we got Chris Rao and Ace Knuckles here with us, the artist and writer and masterminds behind a greatly successful Kickstarter going on right now. I think we got 4 days left. Is that right, fellas?
Yep.
All right. So please head over. We'll have a link posted below, at least after the show. I'm not sure if we got one before or not, but you'll be able to find it through any four of us on this. But this is our art check-in show. I am here with David Fleming. David, when you're not here on YouTube, where can we find you?
Hey, what's up, guys? When you are not here, you can find me at Art of Mr. Fleming on Instagram, and you will also find me on Mr. David Fleming on Facebook. And then we always talk about that on our Instagram profiles. We got our link tree, which will send us to your website, shop, and kind of do all the other good stuff that we want you guys to do, which is also in the show notes. Back to you, Scott.
Yeah, when I'm not here, same as David, kind of best place to find me is on Instagram. Got a link tree in the bio where you can find all the other good stuff. It's at Mr. Green Draws, mr.greendraws. And then also on Facebook, search I'd Rather Be Drawing as well. So at the top of the show, we usually start off with the art check, which is just kind of mine and David's accountability throughout the week to check in, make sure we're both kind of plugging away at our comics. We're not going to go through the whole spiel as far as that goes because we want to make sure we get to our guests to have plenty of time to kind of pick their brains on the creation of Magnus and their Kickstarter. But just real quick, just so we can kind of make sure we do keep the check-in going, David, you're working on Analog Missions, correct? How's that guy going for you?
That is correct. Yeah, man, it's going awesome. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, was that I'd given we checked in right now to be completely done with the drawing chapter 2. I have 3 panels left on a page that I have actually already penciled, and I'm just sort of like clean panels that are probably over halfway done. They just need like a touch up and all that kind of stuff on them. But on the other note, I actually already did sit down with the pages that were Friday and probably write out, like doing my rough draft that I do. We talked about that in the comic process thing where I lay it all out printed kind of like in like a rough draft form, and I take sticky notes and I kind of place speech bubbles and kind of decide where everything's going. The first 8 pages of chapter 2. So one left to draw in the chapter. I have the first 8 pages like literally just an illustrator and the digital side. So yeah, really good stuff happening. 19 or 18, I can't tell, the Kickstarter goes live, so pretty excited.
That's awesome, man. You are making huge progress every day. I can kind of see as you're posting on Instagram, man. It's looking good. So on mine, Fantastic Geographic, I'm on day 48 of my 100 days of making comics, volume 4. On this particular set, I'm involved with the 100s group and was accepted to be in an anthology that they're making. So I'm making a 4-page comic for their Werewolves and Unicorns. So if you follow the hashtag Werewolves and Unicorns, the 100s, that's THEE100S, either one of those on any social media, we'll kind of find 30 different artists or so who are creating a story for that. And mine's kind of a mythical, they're all mythical creatures, and mine's kind of a Steve Irwin Mutual of Omaha meets Fantastic Beasts sort of a thing. And I finally spent a lot of time penciling and trying to get stuff right, but today really jumped in and kind of did most of the line work. So not shading or cross hatching and all like the little stuff, but mostly just kind of basic line work with the brush on all 4 pages today. So if you check out on Instagram, I think you will kind of see that progress. But didn't get quite as far on my travel video thing here for drawing inspiration, but did get a chunk of that knocked out as well. But just really excited to finally be putting some ink on the page for this one. But that's really kind of my wrap up there. And I think we'll just kind of continue that over to you, Rao. What's the progress on, like we said, you're in the Kickstarter. You got about 4 days left. What's kind of been your progress over the last week or so? Sometimes there can kind of be a slump towards this end. How's the last week kind of been as far as that goes?
It's been pretty good. So we're, like you said, we're nearing the end of this Kickstarter. And I think that I'm kind of nearing the stage where I need to go back and revise it all. So one of my Kickstarter, one of our like stretch goals is that I'm going to send out PDFs like instantly, like day 1 or 2 after it's over. I'm going to send all my backers the actual comic in digital form. So usually with the Kickstarter, you kind of give yourself a couple weeks to clean everything up and get it off to the printer and all that. So in this case though, because we're doing that, I need to like, I'm in like get it exactly cleaned up mode like right now. And I've had some of my comic book friends, comic book like author friends look it over and give me some revision ideas and stuff. So basically right now I'm trying to edit the final piece so that I can be done with it the moment that the Kickstarter ends so that I can send it off to everybody.
So you're saying people usually give themselves like a little bit of a buffer in between like it wraps and then sending it to the printer. So like if there's any last couple tweaks they can make it, but you're like, nah, I'll just make sure everything's perfect as soon as it wraps.
Yeah, that's right. Well, so my first time doing it, I wasn't, the project wasn't complete, wasn't finished when the Kickstarter finished. So like most people who run Kickstarters, they're not like, they're maybe 75, 80% done with their project. I found that to be kind of stressful. I didn't like, because I'm trying to like deliver my products quickly. And so I don't like there being a ticking clock. So I'm trying to get it all done right away. Because like with the first Magnus book, there was like a week or 2 after where I was still polishing stuff up, cleaning it up. Then I sent it to the printer. So it took like 3 or 4 weeks to get to people. In this case, I'd like to get it to people, you know, in a couple of weeks. So yeah, to answer your question, I'm in like final revision mode. And actually, I've also been me and Ace have been working on issue 2, which is shaping up to be way better. Actually, it's going to be awesome. So
yeah, for sure.
It's a combination of continuing writing because it's way more fun to write and draw and stuff than it is to go back and like move this text bubble here or like write in everybody's name on the acknowledgement page. You know, that's the kind of stuff I'm doing right now. So yeah.
So you're ready to be like moving forward and get rolling on issue 2, and you're like trying to wrap up the kind of little bit more mundane stuff on the first one.
Yeah, that's right. There was this hilarious podcast. I just heard this guy talking. He's an artist and a writer talking, and they're like, it was just like funny saying. It was like artists like to be making art, writers like to have written something. So it's like the idea being that, you know, they like to have a finished product to sell. I don't really like that. I want to just keep going. I want to draw more. You know what I'm saying? I'm not really
yeah, absolutely. I think that's something Dave and I agree on. We do enjoy the process, even the kind of tough bits. But yeah, the making the art. I hear you. Today it was hard kind of getting anything else done. Once you start putting ink on a page, it gets kind of addictive.
Right. Yeah.
Hey Ace, how did you kind of get involved with this? I mean, that you had the kind of storybook format for the first Magnus. This is, let me back up a second. This is Magnus #1, the first issue in a comic run. Right. But this isn't the first appearance of Magnus. It was your first Kickstarter, Rao, and it was kind of a fun storybook version, kind of very comic oriented. But so from that to this, how did you kind of get involved, Ace?
So, I mean, first we kind of have to go back to the craziness of how like me and Rao even got connected. Like I went to a Comic-Con and then he wasn't at his booth. I grabbed a card off his table, contacted him. And then through that, I had other people start commissioning work from him. And then he started doing these little sketches during his plan period. And he'd do it on Instagram Live. And so I would watch him do that. And then he just started sketching like this character. And he wanted like something he could just draw if he wanted a dude jumping or a dude holding a sword or a dude slashing. And me being a smartass, I was just like, oh, you know, this dude's name is, you know, something. And we started coming up with stupid names. And then all of a sudden we started coming up with stupid backstories and we started playing around with it. And all of a sudden it turned into a real thing. And now, you know, 2 Kickstarters in, I mean, we're actually making some money off of this thing. So, I mean, I would just throw, you know, crappy ideas at him. 2 of them would stick. And then he built that first story with Sam, who actually came up with the entire storyline of that first book and much of the continuing storyline. And so that's really how all this started, was I was just being a smartass and throwing ideas at Rao. And, you know, he has the same kind of crazy ideas as I do.
Ace is underselling himself. So the storybook idea, he did. You said that right. Like I just started drawing the character, but then I was like, me and Ace were talking one day, and I was like, I want a simple idea. I just like to make like a 10-panel story or something. I was going to just practice, and so Ace wrote out like a very concise, simple, kind of fun storyline of Magnus climbing up a hill in search of something. And we thought that was really cool. And my friend Sam, who is the author of the illustrated book, the prequel, he's kind of like more of like a heady kind of literary author. And so he took Ace's kind of fun comic-y idea in my character and turned it into like a deep, like, you know, well, maybe you've read it. If you haven't read it, it's kind of like got a children's book kind of style to it, but it's operating on a lot of different levels. Like it's for adults. So anyway, so what happened was then, after that, Ace, who had already helped me with the outline for the first storybook, we were like, hey, between storybooks, because the plan was to continue making these storybooks, we want to make like let's just try to like make a full color, fun, free webcomic. Because Ace wanted to do kind of like the, like the quick, fun story. And then we started doing it, and I was like coloring it, and I like felt like a real comic book creator for the first time. And I was like, this is super fun. We're going to take this 4-page thing and let's just turn it into like a 10-page thing. And we'll put it in the back of the next storybook. So we got to 10 pages and we were like, maybe we just keep this thing going and turn it into a full comic. And then so we got to the full comic, and then we're like, oh, look at this. This is like a real comic book. And so we were going to just like put this comic book out into the market. And then I was going to go back with Sam and make another storybook. But then, like, it was just so much fun. It was, like, literally the most fun I've ever had in my art career. I was thinking to myself, I want to just keep this thing going. And so Sam was already on board with the writing of it. Sam's, like, my best friend, so he's kind of, like, he's always sort of in my community of what we're doing. But so he had all these ideas. Like, he had an outline for, like, a 6-story kind of, like, arc. But he was thinking more like books, right? So what happened was, Sam and Ace have kind of flipped, because Ace is much more, he's much more, literate on the comic side. Like he's got a comic background, and he's funnier than Sam, and he's like sillier. And so what we've done is we have Sam now, they switch, whereas Ace had the fun, silly, cute story at first, on the illustrated book, and Sam wrote like this deep thing. It's now switched into like a perfect storm of Sam has helped us write this deep layered outline. And now me and Ace primarily, is going to take that and turn it into like this fun comic book. And that's why that's how we like transitioned. So I think that people are going to really like the first comic book. You're going to be able to tell that it was like a fun, fast-paced, like action-y. It was started as a webcomic.
Stopgap. It was supposed to be a stopgap.
It was going to be a stopgap. So then what you'll see, and we cleaned it up a lot. It's very good. I'm very proud of it. But what you're going to see in issues 2 through 6 is you're going to see a very complex, interesting story with the same kind of like fun, fervent, like action, like humor and all that. Because we're getting a lot of like feedback from like Kyle Stram, for instance, the creator of Spread for Image Comics. He read it because we've met through Planet Comic Con, and he read it and he was like, "This is really great. This is really funny." We kept hearing funny and fun, and so Sam actually stepped up to this and was like, "This isn't really my thing. You guys have a cool thing going on. Why don't you just take it and I'll help you craft the story." And Ace, it was like 2 weeks ago, I contacted Ace and I was like, "Change of plans, dude. You're writing a comic book now. It's all yours. Let's just go." And so here we are. Like Ace has written issue 2 pretty much, and yeah. I'm on like page 3 drawing it, page 4, and we've got it all storyboarded out, and it's going to be really good. And you're going to see a major step up from issue 1 to issue 2. Just because we have more of a focus now. Like we know where we're going with it.
So you mentioned through issue 6. Is that the end, or is that the end with a question mark, or kind of like the milestone of let's get to there and then see what happens? Or
no, that is like the beginning.
Yeah,
issue 6 is the beginning.
Right. Go ahead.
I don't think you know how comics work. Issue 1 is the beginning.
No. Like, okay, so
that's definitely not how comics work.
No, whenever you read through this, you're going to read all the way up to issue 6, and you're going to be like, oh, that was a nice story. And then you're going to read like the last few pages, and you're like, oh, this is just the prequel to the actual story that's coming up. Like we've already got this planned out, very structured until issue 6.
Don't say too much about this, because I think this is our unique spin on.
Yeah. I'm not
what's going to make it cool.
Well, here let's take it back a little bit then, because we kind of jumped in because the 4 of us know what the comic's about and where it came from and everything. But what is like your elevator pitch if someone walks over to your table when you're selling the comic? What's the quick version?
Yeah. So basically, what it is Magnus the Brave is the name of the comic. Just to cut back a minute, the original illustrated book was just called Magnus, which acts as a prequel. It's not necessary to have read it before you begin the comic, but if you do, you'll have a little bit more backstory or whatever. So Magnus the Brave is the comic. It's basically about a super-powered barbarian who is kind of a lone wanderer, and he fights monsters and stuff. And essentially, the main plot line is that he's trying to figure out the mysterious sort of past that he has and where this power comes from. So that's the basic idea. It's a giant Hulk. It's kind of like Kratos mixed with Hulk, chopping up bad guys. I pitch it as Samurai Jack and Conan the Barbarian mixed together.
Ooh, that's a good pitch right there. That'll rope a lot of people in.
So we've got plans, though. It's not just going to be, it is going to be funny, and it is going to be bloody and fighting and like silly. But we think that by the time we wrap the first trade paper, which would be the six issues, it's going to be a completed story that's going to be like very unique and very interesting. And then there will be a cliffhanger unrelated to the primary plot that will advance the story forever if we wanted to go there.
That's awesome. I've said it 1,000 times before that you really can kind of tell in a product when the creators are excited about it, and that stuff's definitely coming through on this one. Ace, you have a comic review show here on YouTube. Yeah. Can you give a quick plug for that for me?
Yeah. So I've recently kind of rebranded. I wasn't very tech savvy, so I had like different names for each one of my things. So now you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at The Comic Den. And then my show that I have on The Comic Den, my primary, it's a long form kind of conversational piece about comics. It's called The Comic Rundown. And that's where I just sit down with people that I enjoy talking to. I have them read a comic that I think they would enjoy reading. And then we just talk about it for upwards of 3.5 hours. I mean, the people that have participated in it have really loved it. The people that have watched it seem to like it. And it's just something fun that I like to do. It's actually been, I talked to Chris about this a couple days ago. I'm trying to write a comic that I would enjoy discussing with somebody on my show, which has really been like a guiding force for all this as well.
Well, that's awesome because I don't know. I think it's happened a decent amount with folks that they're just such a hardcore fan of a medium that they just all of a sudden they just kind of become part of it. And it's just, I don't know, this is an especially cool circumstance because you obviously have such a love for the medium, and it doesn't really sound like you were exactly planning on going this route, but it sounds like it's working out.
Yeah, I mean, for as long as I can remember, I've enjoyed comic books. I fell out of it for a little while, and then once I actually got some money to be able to spend on comics, I got back into it. I never in a million years would have thought that I would have chanced upon this opportunity to not only give, I was so excited just to give Rao ideas for his comic, much less actually write one and have people enjoy it. And, you know, the success of the Kickstarter, it really has just been amazing. It's been exhilarating. And I think I wrote Magnus the Brave issue 2 and what was it, Chris, like 2 days?
Oh, yeah. You were flying through it.
So you ready to be on that other side of the table selling this thing?
Oh, yeah. I actually tried to get a table up at Planet this year for another venture. So I want the Comic Den to be kind of an umbrella. And what really, I think, kind of solidified the relationship between me and Rao and me and Fleming is another project that a buddy of mine came up with called Legit Arts. And it's where we hand out informational pamphlets and we talk to people about purchasing art from actual artists at these Comic-Cons instead of going to print farmers. And so that's kind of what got us involved in this whole world to begin with. It moved us from just a fan walking around Comic-Con to somebody taking an active participation. Unfortunately, the booth sold out super quick this year, so I didn't get a chance. But I'm going to be hanging out with Rao and Fleming, come March anyway. And hopefully next year I'll actually have a booth as well as something to sell on top of doing the Legit Arts thing.
That's awesome. I'm really happy for you guys. You can see it. I don't know, the runaway success on Kickstarter there has been pretty awesome. How are you doing over there, David? You're still there, right?
Yeah, man. I'm just you're like, I'm going through my list of questions and crossing half of them off because you're literally you're nailing them. So,
sorry, they just got all the good stories. Here, you go ahead.
Yeah, so first of all, it's just saying what's up to Squatchy. He just jumped on in. So I thought it'd be a really cool thing since this is your third Kickstarter, and we like to kind of do like the whole we learn by doing and how-to show. If you could give like one bit of advice for sort of what you think has been your most successful tip for running these Kickstarters, what do you think would be, Ralph?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that I talked about this with the Nightmare book like 2 or 3 months ago when we did it, and I still think this is true. I think the way to ensure you're going to have a successful campaign, or at least a successful kickoff, is by making like individual contact with people. So it's not enough. Obviously, it's not enough to just start a Kickstarter and hope it happens, because the Kickstarter community is not very strong. It's not like Instagram or something. Like if you just post your Kickstarter and just hope people will find it, you'll probably make like $75. So you have to be the driving force for your Kickstarter, like 100%. So what I do is when I launch a Kickstarter, I go through my sort of like Rolodex, for like an 80s term for you. But I go through all my contacts and I just individually make contact with them and say, hey, I appreciate all the help, all the support in the years past or whatever. If you want to check out my Kickstarter, please do. And I think that's the biggest tip. I think people need, if you want to run a successful Kickstarter, you need to A, like have good relationships with people, and B, you need to like ask them to support you. It's not good enough to just say like, here's this fun thing I did. You need to like, it's like an old sale. Like I was in sales, I was a business manager. It's like one of the things you have to do is you need to ask people for the business. Like that's number one. So it's like in our case, it's not much to ask somebody for $10. Be like, hey, look at this thing I did for months of my life. Would you like to just, take a look? If you want to give $10, that's great. And what you end up doing is you contact, thousands of people, and, 100 of them end up giving you $10, and then there you are. So it's kind of like a way. It sounds a little sleazy. It sounds kind of like you're exploiting your relationships, but you're really not. Because like, just ask yourself, would you care if somebody you liked asked you to look at their art? You wouldn't care. And so like, just treat it that way. Because you're not saying buy this now. You're saying, hey, I'd appreciate it if you take a look at this fun thing I made. So if you just do that over and over and over and over, you'll walk the line of being annoying, of course, but you'll also just like make yourself available to people who like you. Like, in your guys' case, like Scott and Fun Dog, like there's a lot of people who like you guys. So it's okay to just be like, hey, you like me. Thanks for liking me. Will you check out this cool thing I did? Nobody's going to be put off by that at all. Because it doesn't take any energy. It's not like somebody's like, oh God, give me my 4.5 seconds back in my life. Nobody cares. And also it's cool shit anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not asking somebody to like do anything other than look at your neat stuff you made, So I would say that that's it. And I just kind of I don't know where this came from. I didn't really read this anywhere or anything. I think people try to rely on like going viral or like getting like out in the masses somehow, but that's not really how you're going to run a Kickstarter. Like you need to like, really treat your inner circle of people like really well. Like, hey, friends and family, help me out, help me get this thing launched. And so Ace did the same, and having two of us both do it this time around kind of shows why, it's blown up so much. The first, also for some reason, just like being in the industry for a few years now, I've made some contacts with actual dealers, like wholesale dealers, guys who deal comics or even like comic book stores, comic book shops. And so we've actually sold more this time around than my previous two because of that. Like I've got actual Magnus the Brave is going to be on shelves in comic book stores. But again, though, it's all back to this like personal relationship stuff. Nobody's just randomly picking. Nobody found me or our comic randomly. Like everyone, there's a chain back to things we did to get people to get there. Even like people like we've gotten reviewed by a few places that are like national big reviewers, and those weren't just like random way. They didn't randomly get picked up. It was a contact I have here with a group of guys who sell comics here, got me connected with so-and-so, and then all of a sudden we got on a website, and so it's all very organic would be my number one tip for people is like be nice, have a lot of people in your contact list and ask them to do things to help you out. That's kind of where it goes.
And you can't be bashful, but it's not being annoying, like you said. Like these are people that they're already following you, they're already invested in what you're doing, and what you're asking and the time amount that you're taking isn't much. So that makes perfect sense to me.
It's really not.
It kind of goes. We've kind of had this conversation before, like talking about sort of our social media presences and things like that. There is definitely this weird thing of people thinking like, okay, I make an Instagram, I make a Facebook, I post, and then people find me, and if I'm lucky, like I make it or something like, and like that. There's no like that. People will just think that your stuff is so cool that they'll do everything they can to see all of it. But there's definitely this like, and I've learned this a lot lately. It's kind of like what Rao was saying. Like it's not disingenuous. It's legit. Like I've made many contacts with people on Instagram who followed me, and then I said love their art too, and then I was like, hey, your stuff's awesome, appreciate it, and then like actually sent a real message to them. And it wasn't just because I think there's a weird stigma thing. There's a lot, you get it all the time, like a spam message, like someone's just like, hey, wow, really neat, or something like that. Like you get a comment where it's like, this looks great, you're such a good drawer, and you're like, this is an image of myself, it wasn't even a drawing. Yeah. They just like gave you a generic thing or whatever.
Nice. So I saw that on yours recently, Fleming, I think.
Yeah, I literally got, I can't remember what I posted, but someone
was like really good composition, and I think it was just like the advertisement for our show or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you have to be careful to walk the line between being that guy and being like, oh, like I make comments all the time on Instagram, but I only make them to people's stuff that I'm genuinely like, this is awesome, like you deserve props.
Well, and one thing that I found with this whole Kickstarter thing is a lot of people are real hesitant to get on there, especially like some of the older people that are in my family that want to support me. They're like, well, how do I do it? Do I have to put in my card number? Do I have to do this? Do I have to do that? And they're real hesitant about it. But then also you have the people who have been burned by people on Kickstarter as well. And they don't necessarily want to give money to something that they're going to have to wait, a year and a half to get. So I've got, and I'm sure Chris does too, on the sidelines, I've got people saying, yeah, once the book comes in, we'll support the crap out of you. But, they just don't do Kickstarter.
Right. Yeah. You also
I do want to like, go ahead, Chris.
I was just saying, like, if you are running your first Kickstarter or you're about to, you need to like educate people, because we're in this, like we're in it deep. So we all know what Kickstarter is. We know how it works. But like the vast majority of the population has no idea what this is. So part of your, original like pitch, when back to what I was saying earlier, when you're asking your friends and family to help you out, there's an element of it that you have to explain to them what this is. Like some people think like, so I'm trying to help you open a company, you know, and you're like, no, not exactly. You know, it's a project, you know. One good way to frame it, if you're trying to do a Kickstarter for a comic book or a book or whatever, is just frame it as pre-ordering the item. So you're just pre-ordering it. It's not necessarily that you're trying to help me support my whatever company. Just like when you're talking to your like great aunt, just be like, would you like to pre-order my comic book? You know, it's $10. Like they understand that much better than select a tier of investment for my issue. You know what I'm saying? They don't get that. So it's something.
Yeah, select a tier of investment.
Right.
Kind of sounds like it could scare some people off pretty quickly.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's definitely a group of older ladies who are gonna own some Magnus comics on my end, and I'm like, listen, you guys, thank you for ordering. Like, oh, we're just so excited for you.
Yeah, my mother-in-law bought the wholesale package because she wanted to give us $100. So she's got 20 comics coming her way.
That's awesome. She's gonna put them to good use. I can tell.
Probably give them away as presents.
Yeah, now
so
she
that's
doesn't
cool.
have my Christmas presents anymore.
So this is the first one that you've done like a retailer tier thing, and it's working out good for you, huh?
Yeah, it's good. I had a friend of mine. Really, it's been almost like sort of since the first Magnus Illustrated book. It was a little bit before that. I sort of started getting in this group of dealers, like wholesale dealer guys. I did a couple like variant covers for, like I did one for Rick and Morty, and I did one for Wailing Blade. And through this group, a couple of them were like, hey, next time you run a Kickstarter, you should do a wholesale package, you know, because we'll want to sell them in shops or whatever. And I hadn't even thought of that. So it's been great. I put 10 up. And aside from my mother-in-law buying one, I think 6 of them have been sold so far. So that's 120 comics out there. I mean, you're kind of selling them at a loss, sort of. Like I'm selling them for like $5 a piece, essentially. And that's roughly what the production is going to cost with shipping and stuff. But when you're dealing with a Kickstarter, you're dealing with like a sum of production. You don't have to think about it back to the business side of it. You don't have to think about your product as like it costs me $5 per, so I need to sell more, because that's not really how it works. It really kind of works as I've got this lump sum of investment. I can print however much I need to, and then you can sell it. So as it seems like we're kind of losing money on the wholesale stuff, but we're really not. Not to mention the fact that getting 20 comics in the store and getting out to random people is like amazing. So I would highly recommend anybody who's doing this to do a wholesale package. Maybe like chop your retail price in half and then package a bunch of it together. Like for instance, Magnus costs $10, Magnus the Brave. And so my wholesale package is 20 for 100. So it's $5 a piece. I'd highly recommend doing that if you do it.
That's genius, man. Where did you come up with that? Just them saying, "Hey, you should do this"?
Oh yeah, one of the guys was just asked me how, he's like, "You should do this," and then I kind of came up with the pricing and the amount on my own. It seems to be a hit, you know. So
absolutely. By the way, I tried to go to my comic shop to order that Rick and Morty variant cover.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, "No, that's just for this particular comic shop." And I was like, "Oh, damn."
I've got like 50 of them. I'll send you one.
Oh, okay, deal. I can dig it.
All right, problem solved. Right, that's the show. See you guys.
All right, bye.
Mic drop.
Yeah,
that's the whole reason I had them on.
My local spot's been super supportive too. Like they let me put posters and flyers all over their store. The guy could be lying to me, but he said it's been getting a lot of business. I sent him some images, and he said he was going to, plaster those everywhere, and he was going to do. They're actually letting us do a book signing over there, and Prairie Dog Comics for anybody who might be in Wichita that ever watches this. And I'm kind of crossing my fingers. Hopefully we can get in there on like free comic book day. So it's like guaranteed 1,000 people come through and at least see, Magnus. So we're still trying to work that out. I got to go talk to them, but yeah, for sure. We're going to be in there on like a weekend, and we're going to be doing like a book signing and stuff. So yeah, they've been super supportive.
That goes back to what I was saying earlier is like, nobody's going to like, well, maybe some people, maybe 1 out of 1 million people is going to just catch lightning in a bottle and become super famous off of one work. But like Ace, you need to, or like what you do, Scott, you need to like, you need to develop your personal relationships. Like if you want to make it work, you need to like walk into the comic store that you frequent, talk to them. Don't just like go in with the intent of selling something. Like become friends with people and then ask them to help you. Like that's the only way this thing works. Like unless you're one of the fortunate whatever. Like, yeah, I mean, you might be like some freak, amazing whatever and become rich off of your one idea. But really, nobody's becoming rich. Like if you want to get your book out to people, it needs to go out to people that like you, and just like.
And that's what I think is like pretty awesome about the comic community is like, it's not like we're all on Wall Street and you're going out to the bar to meet people to make connections for business where like it's purely just for that. Right. Yeah, that's what this kind of goes to eventually. But the thing is like going into our comic shops and talking with other people who love comics, that's not a chore. Like this is already fun. Right. Going to conventions and meeting people like Ace across the table and striking up conversations. You weren't like, neither one of you, it sounds like we're trying to like make a connection for your business later on.
You're just trying to make a comic book. I didn't even want to make one.
Yeah, you're just making like friends with people, but like you have to be smart enough to know that like the more relationships you have, the bigger your web is when you're reaching out to people, needing to put it out there. Because you guys, like you said, you don't just make something, set it out there and go, hey, here's this thing. If you guys want to check it out, no big deal. Right. You guys are on the ground, going to people, finding people who will help. You guys have been plugging this thing the whole time too. There's been no drop off in the middle or anything like that. You guys are posting often. It's never been annoying. It's just been exciting as people, like as someone that knows you guys, to see the excitement that's kind of building around it. So, and all that stuff is great. But I just want to say that it does boil down to, I don't know, people can do all that stuff, I think, and still not quite get the numbers that they're looking for. A lot of times it does boil down to what's the product. And you guys, like, it's obvious that you guys have made an awesome product. You deliver with art. You've done 2 Kickstarters before this and delivered, and people like know what they're going to get and see what they're going to get. And yeah, the art definitely delivers. So
yeah, I mean, the art's definitely like a 3 out of 5 stars. What's great though is that I do think the art catches your eye. Like we've purposely chosen like the bright, vibrant kind of color scheme, just because it's boom, your eyes are right there, and you're like, oh, what's this? So I definitely think there's a little bit of that kind of sales psychology going into it, and it just so happens that also coincides with kick-ass art and making it look even better.
Well, thanks, dude. Yeah, one of the big things about that is like I'm a child of like early '90s cartoons, and like this is what I've always drawn, like this kind of like bubbly, muscly, like vibrant, crazy colored things. And so I've gotten a little bit of pushback in the industry. And maybe actually get your guys' opinions about this. Most you guys know. Scott, you might not know. Fleming and Ace know. There have been a little, like for instance, I sent this out to Image Comics, which everybody does, and they rejected it, and they said that the aesthetically it was not within their like whatever their branding, basically saying I draw too cartoony. I got that from a couple of places. Like it looks like a cartoon. It doesn't look like comic books. So I'm doing it on purpose because that's how I like to draw, and I like to make my art that way. And I think people like it. And I think that there are some like old industry comic folks who expect comics to have that Jim Lee sort of like traditional look. And I mean, maybe I could like work on it and get better at it and make it look more like that. But I prefer making it look like a Saturday morning cartoon. And so back to that, like the vibrance of it and like the color scheme and stuff, it doesn't quite look like for anybody who's listening who hasn't actually seen it, it doesn't look like it doesn't look like Batman. It looks kind of like ripped from like, I don't know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something. Like that's kind of
90s X-Men.
Right. That's my aesthetic, and the writing and like the story style, like all of that is kind of got a similar vibe, but I mean, it's obviously more modern than that. But so I don't know. What do you think about that, Scott? Like, I mean, obviously it's going well, it's going to be fine, but there is a little bit of weird pushback from like the industry old dudes, I guess, like the about the particular style. Like it's too cartoony. What do you think about that?
That's really weird. Especially like, so like your drawing style, I don't think comes off as cartoony at all. I think that happens in the coloring phase.
Yeah.
So like the drawing, actually, I don't know. In some ways, it makes sense when you talk about like the '90s ref, because in some ways, I kind of think it's sort of you pull the good and fun parts from the '90s, and then kind of throw away all like sort of the crap that was like just too much over the top with certain stuff, which I think is good.
Yeah.
It's weird that they would say something like too cartoony, because they've done books like Chew and all sorts of different stuff that still definitely have like a cartoonist feel.
Yeah.
But still, like, I think have like a Saturday morning cartoon feel as well. So I think it really just matters on when all of that, like that cartooniness reflects in the story and everything.
Right. Right.
And honestly, other than like your prints, I haven't really seen, like, I haven't read a story of yours colored. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't have one. You're about
to.
This will be the first
Right.
one.
So I'm interested to kind of like, and that could be a fun episode too, like do a review once we kind of get in our hands and everything and what it looks like. I don't know if I'd worry too much about, and it seems like every artist out there that's successful talks about how they were told that their style wasn't what people were looking for.
Right.
And they listen to certain things, you know, but I don't think any of them like scrapped what they were doing and decided to like do it differently.
Oh no, not at all. I'm super confident in what we're doing. I love it, and we're gonna keep going, because really we're not doing this for any other reason other than that it's super fun.
For sure.
It's coming, so everybody get ready. There's going to be 6 issues of this.
Yeah,
Magnus is going to come slice your face off.
Yeah, it was an interesting piece of feedback. But yeah, like you said, it's always like, it is weird that it seems like a lot of people who are successful had somebody along the line. Oh crap, you there? Had somebody along the line tell them something needs to be different or whatever. Hang on a second, I'm losing power. Sorry guys. Go ahead, keep talking.
No, you're fine. No, that's always interesting, and it's awesome that you guys are getting feedback, because good, bad, otherwise, it means people are like paying close enough attention to what's going on. Even image, that's pretty cool that it sounds like you got that, because I think most people are just like, yeah, thanks for the submission, but at this time we're not looking for stuff. Sounds like they actually like gave you some info back. So like you said, it's not as if that's like your main focus or anything like that, but my opinion is always, sounds like what you did, you listen to that stuff, but then kind of do what you're going to do anyway, you know?
Right,
well,
exactly.
The great thing too is,
go ahead, Ace. Sorry, go ahead.
The great thing too is like neither one of our mortgages depends on this.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're going to be fine without it. So that means we can do this with just absolute love for the project, rather than be like, oh man, we got to put something out that's going to, you know, sell off the shelves. Whereas now we can put more passion into the project,
which I think in turn will actually sell off the shelves. I think that's the weird conundrum, right? Like, it's like, if you do what the editor at the comic place tells you to do, it's just going to fit into a weird, you know, category. But if you have like, we have like freedom, like we have a certain like creative freedom where it's like nothing matters. We're just like doing it to do it. So I think that'll come through. I think it's going to be unique, and it's going to be something that people are going to really like. And it's not going to look like, you know, the most recent Aquaman or whatever. It's going to look like a cartoon. It's going to feel like a fun, exciting story, and it's going to be something like people haven't really seen before.
I think it's going to look like a well-crafted independent book, which I think more and more people are getting excited about. Right. And especially in those shops where they're actually going to see it on the shelf. I don't think it's a bad thing that it's not going to look like all the other books. You know?
Right. I hope you're right, because I think we're kind of like banking on that. Not that it matters. Like, we could sell 0 and I'm still making it. But
I think it'd be enough to make somebody even walk past it and kind of give that, you know, even if they're the person that thinks it's too cartoony, I think they'll
probably pick it up. Yeah.
What's this? You know, and check it out.
Well,
We did have a question from Red in the chat for the both of you. Says, working as a team, what was your biggest challenge that grew you both together as a team and improved your skills?
Ace, you want to go on that?
The biggest challenge would probably be the fact that, you know, all we could do is communicate through text and Instagram and crap like that. So, I mean, I'm in Wichita, he's up in KC, and so we're trying to coordinate all of this. I think probably the biggest struggle for Rao, other than, you know, me throwing out ideas that are insane for him to draw, is the fact that we both have these really awesome ideas for amazing scenes. But then we have to say, yeah, that's probably not going to play well to anybody but us. Right. For example, in the first actual book, we had this idea where the bad guy, the first bad guy that he encounters, the Mayfly King, or whatever you called him, he was actually going to be a really small guy, and the big thug was going to carry him in like a baby Bjorn, and Magnus was going to punch through him. And like I was all in. I had drawn thumbnails, and we were all in. And at some point, Chris was like, "I think it's going to look like we're punching a baby," and we can't do that.
And
so,
you're like, I mean, "Yeah, hilarious."
Yeah, we can't
look like we're punching a baby.
So I think, you know, kind of editing ourselves, because we want to do something that we both love, but then we also kind of have to toe that line. We can't be the guys known for like punching through a baby's head.
Yeah, that's real. That's a good example.
So self-censorship. That's a good one.
Yeah, and it might be, I mean, Chris maybe have something else that kind of sucks about working with me, but
no, not at all. I think that as far as like the way we go back and forth on stuff, we work really well together. I think we have similar senses of humor that helps, like, because Ace is pretty weird. He's pretty irreverent. Mm-hmm. But so am I. I mean, I don't come across like that in public or whatever. Our senses of humor are very similar. So like whenever he's got a crazy idea, like I'm not like, that's really freaking weird, dude. I'm like, usually like I laugh at it, and then I'm like, man, I wish we could do that. And then I realize that we probably can't. And then how are we going to adjust it? So being on the same page, I don't know really how this happened, but like we ran into each other randomly, and we're very similar people. So we've never like even had an argument about something like, I want this in, no, you can't have that in. Like that doesn't happen at all. So I can see why some people have like creative issues with their creative partners, but I don't know, we lucked into being both pretty weird and having pretty chill sense of humors.
So you got 5 issues left, so we'll see.
Yeah, we're saving the fight for issue 3.
No, I think I'm all on board with your ideas there.
Ooh, yeah, like when the Kickstarter start going down, we'll have you guys back on, and then we'll have this whole like live thing where you guys just get into it and create whole sensationalized thing. It'll be great.
We can do a documentary, like behind the music kind of thing, like what happened. Yeah. When Ace is addicted to smack and laying in the gutter or something.
Ace just wouldn't stop doing blow in his basement.
He wouldn't come down from the rafters. Get down. Hey, any other, like, it's fun chatting with you guys, but David, you had some stuff written down. Are there any like good other like important kind of Kickstarter questions you can think of while we got these guys here?
Nah, man, like this is what I mean. I was like, you're nailing it all. Like seriously, I've crossed out everything. I had some cool things to talk about, but we've really hit on it. I was gonna say, like, when you guys were talking about the cartoon style thing, but like I think that's kind of like what Kickstarter exists for, is that kind of stuff where you feel like you've sent it to places and they're like, it's just not really our feel because it's not our brand, and then you just got to go do it yourself, because there's like this hilarious thing that I feel like happens with, like, if you want to use the word, the industry, but it's like they're only looking for things that look like things they've made because they know it'll make money, but they're also looking for the next big thing, which has to be somehow different from all the things that they've been putting out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. It's a weird, yeah, absolutely. What you just said is perfect.
I've got a lot of friends who I've been, bouncing a bunch of stuff off of, and I sent the link to the article where the guy reviewed the book. And I mean, it wasn't a bad review. We agreed it was kind of a mild review. We love it because it was unbiased and honest. It's the first time somebody we didn't know as either an acquaintance or an actual friend reviewed us. But a lot of people that have read the article, they're like, yeah, I don't know what he's talking about, because in the next article that he wrote, he was reviewing Batman. So I don't know how how the two, are even on the same scale. But yeah, a lot of people that have kind of looked at what's been produced so far, they kind of, and this could be that they're coming from a biased point of view, but they think that it should be higher up on the scale than what he gave it.
Well, we should maybe give some context for that. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up because it's an interesting thing to talk about. So if you don't know what Ace is talking about, Scott, you might not know. I don't know if we told you about this.
I've seen a couple different posts about some reviews that you guys are getting, and you've always been like super honest on like what you just kind of said there. Like, here's an unbiased one. Happy to get any kind of reviews, but not any for reviews.
So what's happened is I've been really, really pushing it out into the world. Like, so I've got this PDF. It's not quite finished, actually. I'm sending out like a 95% version of it, but to everyone I know, everyone in the industry, and it's been reviewed by a few people. And the first like 4 or 5 were great. It was like, we were taking blurbs, we were having fun. Like the poster you were passing out had like, if you liked Skull Kickers and Headlopper, you'll love this or whatever. It was like amazing. Or like, as I was saying earlier, when Kyle Strand was like fun and funny, and I loved blah, blah, blah. Or, I had some other people talk about how they loved it so much. And then we had this connection with a site called Outright Geekery, which is a pretty big comic review site. I mean, it's not gigantic, but, they get like 50,000 hits or whatever. Like, they're a big site. Anyway, so I somehow got in with them via some connections. And this guy, he was very great to review it, but he reviewed it like with his big boy hat on. Like, this was our first step out into like the real world. Like, as Ace was saying, like he had just reviewed, Batman, like Dark Knight's Metal, like issues 4 or something. Or maybe he hadn't just reviewed it, but it's
Batman Who Laughs.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, Batman. Yeah. So it was like right there next to it, right? So, and it was like, so we're like in the big leagues all of a sudden. This is a guy who has no connection to us whatsoever. He's not trying to make us feel good. And he gave it a, like 3.5 stars out of 5. And so that was a weird like combination. And he really had mostly nice things to say about it. There was a lot of like, this is a debut comic. They did a really good job. I liked it quite a bit. But then it mixed into like the 4 paragraphs were like some gut punches, like, A wasn't that good, or this was a little bit crappy, and so like at first we're like, at least I was like, oh man, this is like my first negative review. And it kind of, but at the same time, like Fleming talked some sense into me too. And he was like, it's not even, first of all, it's not negative. Like it's 3.5 out of, it would be a fresh score on Rotten Tomatoes. Like it's a good review. It's your first comic ever. And like the fact that it's reviewed on a national site in anyway is like a big deal. It was just like this first time we stepped out from behind our comfort zone, like our umbrella of friends. And we really pushed the thing out into the real world. And it was like, it got hit with some objective criticisms. And so it was a weird thing to take. But at the same time, we both talked back and forth about this. Like our next issue, we're kind of treating it like we need to impress this guy. Like next time we send out an issue, it needs to be that much better. Like we like what we made, but we're also like, yeah, no, he was kind of right about some of this stuff. Let's just make it better next time.
Yeah,
so
and
like
it's not just to impress this guy. Sorry to interject. It's not just to impress this guy. It's to convince him that this style is legit. This style is going to impress him.
Right.
So, I mean, that was part of the whole cartoony conversation. Is he said it was a little cartoony. Some of the colors were flat. Some of the writing wasn't the greatest. So immediately after we both read that, the inks that, or the sketches that Chris started sending me, just absolutely through the roof. Blows issue number 1 out of the water. Issue 2 is going to be just a bombshell.
So
and
it sounds like everything about that review, and I know like a couple of things, like I can definitely see how they could be like gut punches, like you said, but from an outside artist who's making stuff like this, from what you guys are saying, everything about that sounds awesome.
Oh yeah.
Like you got to review, like you saying it was like on the same, like, you know, he like is reviewing Batman and then yours right there, like win. Like if Fleming said 3.5 out of 5, that's good. Him giving you constructive stuff that makes you guys go, you know what? I think I can see some of what he's saying, so we can do even better this next time. Not to impress him, but just go, yeah, let's like get even more excited about it and tear it up even more and build upon what we've got and make it better and better and better. Yeah, honestly, like everything about it sounds awesome.
Well, thanks. I'm glad you heard that when I was talking.
Yeah, like no, like that's like, you know, that's successful stuff right there, man. If I got reviewed on that thing and they said this guy sucks, I think I'd still be like, at least somebody looked at it, you know.
Yeah.
But like honestly, like, you know, if you can get somebody to like or hate it, but spend enough time to actually look at it, like that right there is a victory. But the fact that you're getting reviewed in the big leagues like that, you guys are definitely doing something right. So
Yeah, right.
I don't want to overstate it. I don't want to harp on like negativity. This is a really, it's a good comic book. It's awesome. You're gonna like it. It's not like some average book. Like it's fun and it's exciting and it's colorful and it's violent.
that's what I'm saying. Like some average book wouldn't be getting reviewed on this level. So I mean, you guys are definitely making quality stuff out there. If this bigwig critic, you know, has issues with it, well, he doesn't get paid to tell everybody that he loves everything, you know.
Well, he in the same breath, the Batman Who Laughs issue 2 got 3.9. So I mean,
see, you guys are doing just fine. No, that's awesome, guys.
It was very constructive in the format. It was like what do they call it? A compliment sandwich.
Yeah,
it was like, oh, you know, this was really great. It harkened back and brought me back to the old days when I would watch Saturday morning cartoons. This was a little off, but then I really like this. And I mean, even at the end, he was like, yeah, go check out the Kickstarter, and there's a link to it. And so, I mean, the guy wasn't a jerk. I mean, he could have been like, yeah, and I'm sure his mom doesn't love him or something like that. But no, he was, I mean, it wasn't like the stereotypical review or anything like that.
Yeah, not at all. That's what I was going to say. It's not even a bad review. I'm just talking about like, the reason I brought it up was just like to illustrate my fragile ego, or anybody who's an artist. Like,
well, it was the first time that anything like that had happened to us. I mean,
most people are like,
our mom's loving it.
Right. They're in their group of friends and family. Like nobody sees anybody's art that isn't like somebody you already sort of know. So like when you finally get it off to somebody who has no connection to you and they're like, gloves are off, it's pure objective. It's just a different feeling. It was like we got pushed out of the nest. So it was a positive for sure. And particularly because it like motivated us to be better anyway, but like it was a positive thing. I don't want to.
Yeah, no, that's definitely coming across that. Yeah, that's just for an artist on our level, your level in this area here, whatever you're on. Yeah, that's a unique experience to kind of deal with, and it sounds like you definitely were able to sort of set ego aside and look at it objectively and go, "Cool, what is this turd really saying?"
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Ronnie Gunter just said, which I think is a good point. He says, Chris, I really enjoy your art. As I grew up in the mid 80s, early 90s, your work connects with me. So some of those things that those guys are saying might be off-putting to them. All the dudes our age that are buying comic books right now and enjoying, like you said, headlopper, skull kicker type stuff. I think folks are really going to enjoy this book.
Thanks, Ronnie.
The writing's pretty good too. I mean,
yeah, whatever.
Shut up, Ace.
The word. Sorry. Do I need to turn my chair around?
Go sit in the corner. Artists are talking.
No, that is the weird thing though. So Chris got me into this Facebook group for independent comic creators, and like it's just full of artists, and those dudes are like coloring and drawing and inking and writing and doing all their own stuff. And I'm just sitting kind of off by myself, be like, yeah, I can put words on paper.
Yeah, but the thing is, and something I wanted to bring up with like this kind of powerhouse team that you guys have put together with the two of you plus Sam, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. And just kind of the way that it's all come together. There's a lot of us artists out there who, David and I, we do have our own ideas, and we're not writers, but we're making it happen, and it takes a long time and everything. But there is something to be said for, there's a ton of artists out there posting all their stuff all the time, trying to make comics, and teaming up with a writer. That sounds like it's just something that's really benefited you in this area, because you're already penciling and inking and drawing and all that stuff yourself, but coming up with the ideas and the story, that's like a whole nother aspect to it. And it seems like it can really, I don't know, artists at our stage who are really trying to make stuff and get out there and get known, like, go find a writer, you know. And you got your own ideas. Even like this isn't something where someone else just wrote it and you're drawing it for them. Like, you guys have come up with this together.
Right.
Obviously that can't always work in every situation, but it's definitely working out for you guys. So it seems like not a bad.
It's kind of a weird thing on Instagram too, because all I'm doing is posting the art that Chris has made, and I'm pushing the book that I wrote and everything. And everyone's like, "Oh, that's really cool art. Did you do it yourself?" And I have to always be like, "No, at Mr. Rao Arts did it.
Yeah.
I'm the writer." Like, I can't just post paragraphs and be like, "Look at my work."
Yeah, but how awesome is that? You're promoting him, which in turn promotes you, and it just creates this big.
Yeah, but Chris doesn't ever talk about me. I mean, he just. Have you ever read the back of the comic book in my acknowledgement section?
Did you hear in that review though, the guy said that was the best part?
The best writing in the whole book was the acknowledgement section about me.
That's being stupid in the back.
Oh, that's cool.
It's pretty funny. I got it from Headlopper. The author of Headlopper writes these ridiculous bios about himself in his trades. So we did that at the end of this issue. It's pretty great.
Man, I can't wait to see the book.
Also, before you move on, another thing I wanted to talk about was my favorite part about the whole thing is that and I've been posting about this the last day or two. So through the process of creating a book and like going to conventions and meeting people and building my Instagram and stuff, back to art, sorry, Ace, but just the art side, I've got these awesome artistic friends like across the world, really, and they've all been doing versions of Magnus in their style. And so I've been posting it on Instagram, but so every book that we create, every issue, I'm dedicating space in the back for like different renditions of our characters. So you'll see that, like, you know, issue 1, there's like 5 or 6, and issue 2, there's going to be, you know, more than that. And then you're going to read your 25-page, 30-page comic, and then there's going to be 10 pages of art from like my friends and people I've met. Obviously, Scott and Fleming, and you guys did Magnus's. You're going to be published in the first book. So you'll see what I'm talking about. So if you guys are friends of Scott and David, you should buy the book so you can see their versions of Magnus. But like, this is the most fun thing about this is like just the community of artists. And so like being able to like show other people's versions of your character, it's like amazing. When somebody sends me one, like even yours, Scott, I think you were like, "Oh, it's not that good." I was like, "What are you talking about? This is fucking amazing." Where he's like stabbing it's awesome. So it's like my favorite.
It was a lot of fun, man. And like, it wasn't like, you know, ooh, I'll do this and maybe get it in the book. I didn't know anything about that. It's a cool character.
Yes, exactly.
And it's fun. So, by the way, though, since our images, that leads to a good question. Since our images are going to be in there, how much do David and I get?
Well, so I'm going to give you all. Never mind, nothing.
Pat on the back. All right.
You get the coattails that you're riding in on.
Hell yeah, dude. Just farting all right in on it.
Yeah, that's right.
No, but
guys,
awesome.
that's really awesome, man. And it is quite an honor that you're putting those in there. And as a comic book fan, I think it's awesome to see those in other books that I read.
Right.
When fans turn those in, or just the extra art that's like the variant cover art and, you know, stuff like that. Those little extras at the end are a lot of fun. So I'm excited to see all that stuff. So what's the final day on the Kickstarter?
That's a great question. I don't know. Do you know, Ace?
Like 4 days from now.
4 days from now.
Thursday.
So there's not much time. So basically, if you've been thinking about it, just go over and do it now. $10, you really support them. It's going to be awesome. You're going to get quality stuff. You say you've already reached some stretch goals?
Yeah, so the first stretch goal was back to what we were just talking about with my friends making art. This is a dude who lives in Iran. Did I say that right? Named Farid. He is one of the greatest. I legitimately think he might be one of the best artists in the world. He just happens to live in a very tough situation. He did a Magnus. Some of you may have seen it, where Magnus is like in a monster's mouth with an axe. And he just sent it to me. He's just like a friend. He was like, "Here, take this." So we're going to turn that into a bookmark that is going to be like a really nice, high quality bookmark. And that's free. Anybody who backs it gets that. Then some other ones are going to be, like we mentioned earlier on in the podcast, you're going to get a PDF, like a downloadable version of the comic right away as soon as the Kickstarter's over. I mean, give me 2 or 3 days. Download it to your email. Then another one was that I'm going to send a downloadable version of the original illustrated book, which, although it's unnecessary to enjoy Magnus the Brave, based on some of the stuff that Ace is weaving into the storyline here and the upcoming issues, it really tightens stuff up. And so you're going to want to read that as well. So you kind of know where Magnus started out, why he started his journey, things like that. Again, although unnecessary to the comic, it'll just give you that much more,
bonus features.
You'll enjoy it. So that's coming free to every backer as well. So
we're
pulling
a lot of Easter eggs from it.
Yeah, there's going to be, and particularly some Easter eggs and also some driving forces of the storyline. You'll see what we mean.
Awesome. So basically, for buying the one comic, you're going to get a comic plus that big storybook that went along with it as well in digital form.
Exactly, and a dope ass bookmark from a guy from Iran.
Hell yeah, I have seen that artwork and it is sick. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Before we kind of wrapping up here, is there any other thing that either of you guys were wanting to kind of say about this Kickstarter, about what's going on, or anything associated with?
Well, I mean, I'm going to use this platform right now. So, like I said, I've written issue 2 already. I'm going to be working on issue 3 and 4 this next week. Hopefully I can have that all done. Currently, I have at least 6 books worth of kind of a side story, Percival, which, by the way, was the critic's favorite character out of the whole story.
Yeah, maybe.
It was his favorite. I've got a ton of stories written for him, and he's going to be woven in and out of the Magnus universe, hopefully, depending on how things turn out. But yeah, I'm just looking for an artist. So if you guys know anybody that wants to get in on some Percy action, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, we're calling it the Magnus verse. So any characters introduced, these are Ace's property. Like he can run with it wherever he wants to go. Percival's this giant blue Cyclops. You're going to meet him in issue 1 here. He is really cool. And yeah, I would draw it, but I've got so much Magnus going on. To give you some context, if you've ever seen Samurai Jack, essentially Percy is the Scotsman. He's like a big, burly, like fun, crazy character who comes in every once in a while as like a buddy. It's like a buddy cop occasionally. And then
sort of like Sam Elliott from Roadhouse.
That's exactly it. So if you want to help,
I'm so happy that like you got that reference and that there's something.
If you want to help Ace out, Ace can. I mean, the writing of a comic does not take nearly as long as the drawing of it. So he could write 10 Percy stories while we're writing Magnus. It's just like a spinoff. So if you know any artists out there who want to try something,
yeah. I'm sure, whenever we're talking about the struggles of being a team, I spam Chris constantly with just, got a page done. And I'm just sending him all these pictures of just script. And he's like, dude.
He's like, I've got 6 issues done. You're like, dude, I'm working on the same panel. Quit bugging me.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but in Magnus, in issue 2, I've come up with some crazy concepts for like panel design, and so Chris's eyes are just bleeding by the end of the day, and he wants to tell me.
Yeah, he's like another one, like a 3D pop-up book. I mean, I don't know how to do this.
We're working on hologram technology, so we're hoping to work that in.
Beautiful. So yeah, so Magnus the Brave. That's what people are going to search on Kickstarter, right?
That's right, Magnus the Brave.
Magnus, Magnus.
You got it.
Search it. I love it, guys. Really happy for you. Anything I can do on this end, ever with any of that stuff, it's a pleasure, and it's fun kind of seeing your guys' success, because it's good quality stuff, and it's a win for indie comics, I'd say. So,
hey, thanks, man.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for putting out such good work. How about you, David? As we're wrapping up here, when we're not here on our YouTube channel, where can we find you and Analog Missions?
Yeah, so keep an eye out, because like I said, we are 19 or 18, I can't remember the exact number here, days away from Analog Missions going on Kickstarter, which I'm really excited about. It'll be my first, like, send it away to the printer, get it done really well. If you got a lot of you guys who watch this have been following me for a long time and have seen kind of me playing with the short story stuff with like Boy and a Bike and some of the stuff I've written here lately. So this is my first sort of long form thing that I'm really excited about. I'm going to be doing a lot of project updates here. On the note of what you guys are talking about there too, like the art in the back of the book and the how to, or the how did I get there, and the concept stuff. It's like literally my favorite thing about buying I always buy the collected hardbacks of things I love, because I know I'm going to get that stuff in it. So I also plan to have that kind of stuff in the back of my thing. Going to ask you guys and some other people to do some stuff in the back. And I just decided I'm going to do a contest, which is going to go up on my Instagram next week, for anybody who's a follower at all. And I don't even care the art skill, like just to get an extra one published from some kind of follower or fan of mine who wants to also try drawing Apollo. So Art of Mr. Fleming on Instagram, check me out, and keep an eye out for the good stuff.
I love it. And as for me, I am working on my, let's see here. Nope, I don't have it right. Oh, yeah, here you go. Fantastic Geographic for the 100s. Please check it out. My Instagram is where you'll find most of it. Mr. Green Draws, mr.greendraws. We're about halfway through the 100 days, and as the 100 days wraps up, we're going to be doing a Kickstarter to publish that anthology and get it out to people. So excited.
Hey, Scott, real quick. Are we going to do this October book?
Yes, I'm really excited about it. You've been busy and I've been busy, but it's been on my mind constantly. But yeah, I'm still game. I just got to get it going.
Chris Rao Art Publishing, bro. Let's do it. I'll get it.
I'm ready still. 100%. I'm in, man.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for being on the show, Ace, Chris. Love having you on. Good luck with everything. If it works out and you want to come back for issue 2, issue 3, Percival spinoffs, anytime, you guys are welcome. So thank you very much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.
See you around.
Deuces.